Mm-hmm. Who starts for this team?
I think it's Duran, Stu, Bogey, Ivy, Cade.
Okay.
There's part of talking to Sam Vecini. He on his pod a few weeks ago. He floated out the idea of like, what if they start Monty next to Cade instead of Jaden, which I don't think they'll do. But I think Monty closes more games than we think. I wrote that yesterday.
Yeah, I think if you want to win games, you probably do that. But this is still like the long view. I don't think
Right.
you can, if you think that Jaden Ivey is a starter,
Yeah.
you can't, you just cannot put him to the bench for
Right.
Monte Morris. Like, all credit to Monte Morris, what he's done with his career, but
Yep.
you can't do that.
No, I agree. And shout out to Flint. Shout out to Monte
Shout out to
Morris.
Flint.
It's
Yep.
it's I think that's the starting lineup. I think that assuming, and I don't want to say nothing's going to click 100%, but assuming we get, say, Stu gets 35% on 5 or 6 attempts a game.
Mm-hmm.
I Ivy and Cade are better 3-point shooters. Like I think offensively and defensively, Jalen Duran takes the steps he has to defensively.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's their best five for now. For now, I think
Yeah.
Asar is gonna make Bogey sweat eventually, but to start the year, I think that's the best five.
Are they going to trade Bogey or like, is he going to stay? Like, what's the deal with him?
That's the that's a great question. I know they very much love Bogey. I being around Bogey and watching him, even though all the losses, like I think Bogey generally likes being in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just so that's the thing, right? It's like it's not that if they like Bogey and like to keep Bogey, but also other teams really like Bogey and would like Bogey and would give up things for Bogey. Sorry, I said the same thing twice. Would give up things for Bogey, and you have Asar. This is how I think it plays out. I think Bogey's here to start the year. If they're in the play-in hunt, he stays.
Yeah.
If they're making improvements but not in the play-in hunt, he goes. He has a pretty friendly contract next year where essentially it's pretty much a win-win for the Pistons, right? They could trade Bogey. I don't know what his you hear what they're asking for. I don't know if they'll get it. Kind of, I think it depends on how Bogey looks. If he
What are they asking
looks,
for?
everything I've heard is at least a first. Now I don't know how like unprotected, protected.
Yeah.
Like it seems like a pretty decent first from everything I've gathered.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like a protected first from Milwaukee. I think it has to be like an unprotected first, which I think is fair for Bogey. Uh, I don't I don't know if a team's giving that up at right now. I think that's more of like a deadline thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think so. His contract next year is basically partially guaranteed. I think it's only partially guaranteed for 3 million. So basically, the Pistons can either trade him and get assets, or they could let him go if they don't want to keep him and open up a lot of cap space. So it's kind of a the friendliness of the contract allows them to dictate it. Of course, you want to get assets for you don't want to just let a guy walk, but if you're opening up like 17 million in cap space, that's not really letting a guy just walk, I guess. I don't know. I think he stays to start the year, and I think they see what it looks like.
Yeah. I just wonder because I mean they're a young team, but they're different than a lot of these other young teams that they don't have like a lot of like excess assets like all the
No,
other like Thunder. Um, the Pelicans are like this, the Spurs are like this, like have a ton of assets. Houston has a
yep,
lot of excess assets, and the Pistons don't. So I just wondered because he's 34,
yeah,
and I just kind of wondered a little bit because you
no,
never
I
know.
think that's
Like you
I
never,
think that's fair.
yeah, you never know with a guy that's 34 when it's going to end. Like maybe it
Yeah,
doesn't until he's 36, 37. He doesn't like rely on athleticism or anything like that, but you
right.
just never know. If you get a first round pick for him that's in the future, just say like, hey, just kick the can as far down the road as possible. Let's make it as
Yeah,
unprotected as possible. Give me a 2028 unprotected first round pick from Milwaukee or even top five protected. Like the Thunder keep getting these top five unprotected or top five protected picks from Denver, but
yeah,
just like very far in the future.
yeah.
Like go to a team that feels good about themselves right now and say like, hey, listen, you're always going to be good forever. and try
Right.
to trick them into giving you some
Yeah.
like low protected pick in the future. Because you just never know. You never know
Yeah.
where things are going. And so I like him too. I think he helps them a lot, but I just wonder long term if you'd just rather have an extra asset.
And I think I'm glad you brought that up. Um, because I try to frequently enforce this to in my writing when talking about the overall view of the rebuild and um, when people are getting impatient and things like that. And I understand that truly. The team hasn't won a playoff game in over 15 years. The issue that I have when people kind of want this group to hurry up because the franchise hasn't been good, like Troy has nothing to do with that. Like it's unfortunate. I understand that fans have had to sit through that, but he's, in my opinion, doing it the right way. And I don't think people really realize how fortunate. Yes, I know they just won 17 games, but I don't think people really realize how fortunate the Pistons are to have the young core that they do, given the circumstances.
Yeah.
Like I don't, people have to understand that when the Pistons decided to rebuild, their best, their three best players, Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, and Reggie Jackson, in total, to get rid of them in total, brought them back John Henson, Brandon Knight, and cap space and 2 second-round picks. That's what Blake Griffin, Reggie Jackson, and Andre Drummond got you.
Ooh.
There is
Ooh.
no they like this wasn't this was whatever's below ground zero.
Yeah.
That's why I think people, and I understand again, I get the frustration and I understand like wanting to see a winner. This is a humongous basketball city. The Pistons are a legacy franchise. There are very few organizations who have won as many titles as them. I think they're like seventh in the history of the NBA with titles with three, and it's like they had the run in the early 2000s, like they've had one of the better runs in recent history. But it's like you guys realize that you have from nothing Cade, Jaden, Jalen, Stewart, Asar.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Just I understand losing at 17 wins is tough, but they had to do that. They had nothing.
Yeah.
They had nothing to show for a sweet playoff a playoff run in what year was that? 2018, where Blake Griffin was phenomenal, one of the best 15 players in the league. I argue he's one of the top like 7 players in the league that year. He gave everything he had. His leg went out, and it was like Andre and Reggie didn't have value. Like it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
It really could be a lot worse. And I just think, and I don't know if fans of other teams realize that how bad it was when the Pistons had to start over. Like this, they didn't have the Aaron Gordon to trade like Orlando. They didn't have the Paul George like OKC.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the James Harden like Houston. Like they didn't even have the Vucevic that Orlando had. Like that even got them what? Wendell Carter Jr. and 2 picks, which one of them was Franz.
I mean, yeah, that would,
Like they had to
that would be helpful.
manipulate. Yeah, like they had to manipulate way. Like I'm still kind of confused on how they ended up getting in that. I mean, that class now it looks like it's just going to be the stew, the last one standing. But they ended up getting 3 firsts in 2020. I have no idea how they moved Luke Kennard and Christian Wood. Like that's what they had to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that needs to be put into perspective. I'm not like holding the water for them.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to like feel bad for them or anything like that, but it's just the facts are the facts, man. Like you know how they had nothing to start from. Every other team, they're like, why is OKC doing this? Why is Orlando doing this? Why is
Yeah.
Houston doing this? Because they had somewhere to start.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you brought that up because I do think that that doesn't get talked about enough on a national scale. Like the Pistons started from dog shit,
Yeah.
basically, and I just in terms of assets, I mean,
Yeah.